hunting,
fishing,
cooking,
camping,
conservation,
travel,
gardening,
photography, family.
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 This is the Outdoor Rules Podcast. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. It's Mike again. We are back this week with part 2 of our story with Joe Skorupski. We're just going to jump right into this one, but if you have not listened to part 1, I would suggest that you do that. Go back and check it out, because as we jump in here, we're in the middle of an Alaska hunt with Joe and a couple of his buddies, and things get really exciting, and then the story really takes quite a turn. So hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you again at the end of the episode.
So that day went by, and then, man, the migration turned on, and it was something special for caribou. I mean, they were just pouring in past us on multiple migration routes. It was so overwhelming to just be glassing bulls and cow groups, and what was the most remarkable about it was like the more time that went on, the bigger the bulls got, and It was pretty incredible. So I believe it was the next day, day 3, and at that point now I'm like kind of itchy because I just passed on a bull and a great moose, and I'm like, I have to kill a nice caribou, like a caribou that I'm gonna be happy with, a nice mature bull.
Right.
And man, we spotted, I don't remember if it was Brian or Derek or I can't remember who spotted this caribou bedded way far away, probably 2 miles, to where I didn't have to cross the creek, but I had to walk across the tundra, past the lake that we landed in. And I just remember seeing this thing, and like, that was the best part of it, is that there were so many bulls that you could make comparisons, which is like the most important. It's like, wow, that one looks really great, and it's like a nice bull. And then you're like, oh man, look at that one. Oh wow, look at that one. Like, you can make that comparison, and this bull stood out way above and beyond the other ones. And I was like, man, I really want to try to get over there and just see if I can even get close enough. And I decided to go, and I went by myself, and those guys stayed in camp and just kind of watched. And I made it about 3/4 of the way over there, and there was a bunch of bulls bedded in front of me. And I remember just kind of like sitting there and being like, well, I don't see that big bull, but these guys are really pretty special. And I remember sitting there for a little bit, and then all of a sudden I heard wolves howling.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, those things, you could stalk in on a caribou into 500 yards without a problem. They hear a wolf, they are gone. It's pretty incredible. And the entire herd that migrated into that little valley where I was hunting across the lake blew up and took off, like right in front of me. Like a couple thousand caribou just picked up and they're gone. And I could see the wolves at this point. Derek's howling to them. I could kind of hear those guys, and they were howling a lot more than I thought to these wolves. And in my mind, I was like, well, these wolves are going to chase these caribou. I am going to scramble up over this knob. I'm going to kill one of those wolves. So that was in my mind, and I scrambled up over the hill, and that giant bull was standing there with like 5 other bulls. The one that I initially spotted, and I took a knee and shot him once, and he tipped over, and it was pretty incredible. Like, to have that full experience of just, I thought the hunt was over.
Right.
And then next thing I know, that bull those wolves basically pushed him to me a half mile from where I last saw him. So
yeah, it's
pretty neat experience.
We did that episode, Good Luck, Bad Luck, Who Knows? It's a perfect example of that, right? Like, oh man, everything turned against me, bad luck.
Mm-hmm.
Wolves blew this up for me, whatever, bumped them out. And then turns out, nope, that was actually exactly the piece of luck that you needed to kill the big bull that you were after.
Yeah. And I could have turned around and been pissed off in that moment and been like, these wolves screwed me over, and
right.
And that's it. But I'm glad that I pushed on and kept going, and it worked out in my favor for sure.
Yeah. We'll
And
definitely.
ended up being a pretty remarkable bull.
It is, and we'll definitely post a picture of that one. It's an amazing caribou. So
So yeah, so then at that point, oh, go ahead, go
no,
ahead.
you go ahead.
I was just going to say it was, then Brian paddled across the lake with the raft, ended up being like probably 400 yards from the lake edge, but across the lake all the way. So Brian brought the boat over. I quartered the whole thing up while he was doing that. Fortunately, we had inReaches where we could talk back and forth. And yeah, he came. I got most of the quarters close-ish, and then Brian showed up, and we loaded up the caribou and paddled back across the lake and went to camp. It was great.
Nice. So now it's day 3, and you and Brian each have a caribou, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I might be off on days a little
Yeah,
bit.
it's okay.
I might be 4. It doesn't matter. But so then at that point, it's like, okay, we need to do everything that we can for Derek to get a bull. Like this has to happen for him, because at this point we're like, we don't know what caribou we're going to see downriver, and there's always that notion of that. You hear the stories of I saw thousands of caribou, and then it just turns off and you don't see a single caribou.
Right.
So we wanted to capitalize on the situation that we had in hand, and at that stage, Derek felt good enough to put him in a boat and go across the creek. He kind of spotted this. He had the fortunate opportunity to see in camp. He wasn't running around like an idiot like I was, just trying to chase caribou
Right.
for the first couple of days. And so he just sat there and glassed, and he had things patterned really, really well. It was, good luck, bad luck, I guess, if you want to call that, where he couldn't scramble around, but he was being really patient, just kind of sat there and watched with the spotting scope.
He had a sense of
And
what
he's
they
like,
would
man, like,
do.
yeah. And he's like, man, we're like 10 o'clock every day. Big bulls move across this face of this slope. And he's like, I think if we go over there, like, we might have a good opportunity to shoot one at like, 100 yards if we just go in the morning and perch up there. And, between like right around lunchtime, I guess it was a little bit later. It was, I think is what he said is he's like, they just start moving through there every single day. So we're like, yeah, let's go over there and we can take our time, and he can use trekking poles and get up the hill. And it wasn't too far of a hike. I think it was 3/4 of a mile, half mile. So we went across in the boats, got out, stashed the boats on shore, uh, started walking up the hill, and got to that spot, and we sat down, and it was pretty wild. I mean, we sat down. He's like, yeah, it should be starting soon here. And next thing you know, like there's bulls all around us, and it was incredible. And Derek chose a great bull and ended up killing it. And I have a video of just the caribou on the ground. We're all standing over it, sitting there, and it's just caribou pouring past us while we're cutting up this caribou. And that's the only thing that I might slightly regret on that trip is there were some amazing bulls that went past, and you in Alaska you can burn your moose tag and shoot another caribou. And I was safety off on this other bull, and I was like, man, this thing's incredible. Should I burn my moose tag? And in the moment, I was like, okay, well, Derek can't pack anything, so Brian and I are gonna have to pack 2 caribou. I think Derek took back straps, but he was still in rough shape at that point. So it's like,
Right.
I don't know. Do I really want to be the greedy Alaskan non-resident hunter at that moment? Like you hear all these guys, and it was pretty special just to watch caribou roll past us at the same time instead of shooting one. So
Yeah.
I didn't. I just sat there and we watched hundreds, if not thousands, of caribou just roll through, and it was unbelievably remarkable experience. Even though I didn't shoot another one, it's not always about that. So
Right.
yeah, we packed Derek's caribou back to the rafts and went across the lake. And at that point, we were like, I think we had 3 days to get to the takeout, and it was kind of a mad dash down the river. So
Yeah, because it's pretty
I don't know if you
serious.
want me to keep going on that story or not, but
Well, no, it's pretty serious work to get down the river, right?
Yeah. And, we had this notion of that we were going to be dragging the boats potentially in pretty low flows. And, we started out and it was like, man, this is great. Like we're cruising. Like this is like, we covered miles. I forget how many miles we covered the first day. So this would now be day, I think 4 or 5. It might have been 5 when we started floating down the river because we got all the gear packed up and then started floating. And it was incredible. It was, I was in the little boat. Those guys were in the bigger boat with the caribou and gear kind of split up amongst the two. And we kind of picked out, I think 4 or 5 spots to stop and call and just, we wanted to set up camp. I think 1 or 2 more times potentially. I think we only ended up setting it up once, but my memory's a little fuzzy. I remember setting up the camp, going down the river as far as we could. We're like, we got to make it to this point, otherwise we're hosed. We're not going to make it out in time. So we made it down to this camp and to where we thought we could camp, I guess. And it looked like it was really moosey and called a bunch. And we ended up calling in what we think was like barely 50 inches, if not under 50. I think we kind of settled on that it wasn't likely illegal.
Yeah,
but we
and
called him in, and
you keep mentioning 50 inches. That's because that's what they have to be. They have to be 50 inches wide to be legal, or they have to have 4 brow
correct.
points.
Yeah, 3 or 4. What is
Yeah. Well, if you're going to Alaska,
be...
don't rely on us. Look it up for yourself. But
yeah, but yeah, we always looked at the thing about brow tines that's really hard is that they can palmate, and it's almost hard to count sometimes unless you're really close and they're standing still. And like once you kill one, you look over like, oh yeah, those are the brow tines. But there's weird points that stick out that can get you in trouble for sure if you're not careful. So we always tried to look at the 50-inch mark,
right,
to make it legal and make sure that we were legal. And we decided this bull wasn't legal, and it was, and I truly don't believe it was. I think we have pictures of them, and but that was that camp, and it was another incredible spot. But it was like whitewater to get down the, that first chunk was like class 1 rapids, just kind of like rolling through. There was a little bit of 2, and we're like, man, this isn't bad. This is great. And we, and then the thing that was really different that we weren't expecting was we couldn't hear because the river was so loud.
Oh,
creek.
yeah.
And that was not what we anticipated. It was like we call and we couldn't hear anything back, and we didn't know if the sound was even making it to moose or not. And so that was really kind of like, okay, are we
right?
Are we gonna get this done? Because the river is so loud at this point, and not what we anticipated.
Right.
So we stayed there, I think, for 1 day. And then it was, that last day, it was like we picked out 4 spots to stop to do calling sequences. And we're like, that's it. That's all we got. And so we started rolling down the river, and we immediately hit some bigger rapids. And at that stage, those guys went for it and made it. I made it through the first class 2 and immediately filled my boat.
Ugh.
And fortunately, I was smart enough to have a stern line on the boat, because I was like, man, this looks a little sketchy, and I'm not sure if I can maneuver through it. And because there was a big boulder you had to get around. And I chose a shore, and it was the wrong shoreline, unfortunately. It was the deeper one. And I jumped out, grabbed the stern line, and wrapped it around a tree. And I was kind of in trouble there for a little bit. It was one of those moments I was like, I might die in this in this little creek, because I was just about topping my waders. I was standing in like class 2 plus edge of rapids, and my boat's full of water, and those guys are below me. And I was like, I gotta handline this thing down the shoreline. There's no way I can paddle this with this full of water. And I couldn't get the water out. I was totally in a bind at that point. So fortunately, so I started hand lining it down. I pinched my hand at one point, and I was like, I'm going to end up losing fingers if I don't do this right. So Brian came up, and we clipped in some carabiners and slowly hand lined that thing down the shoreline, but it was more of like a uncontrolled situation that once I got through, I was like, I don't ever want to do that again. That wasn't fun. You know, I was very, very cold at that point. I was full of adrenaline, and I was like, this is not what I wanted to do. And then immediately Brian's like, my boat's horrible too. Like, we just didn't have control. Like, I was like, I can't control this thing, Brian. He's like, you should try rowing that thing. It sucks. It's probably worse. And it probably was, because Derek couldn't really, you know, give it the beans for paddling. And
right.
the river was just way bigger than we anticipated.
And
that was one of those unknowns.
The boats that you guys were in, they were inflatable rafts, but they didn't have a rowing frame with oars, right? You just had paddles.
Yeah, that was one of the regrets, that the bigger boat needed oars, and I was anticipating there being oars, and it didn't work out that way when we picked them up. And I regret not pushing that issue more, because it definitely would have really been beneficial, because I can row. I'm not a strong paddler, but I can row a boat through anything.
Well, it's just a lot harder to control a boat with paddles than it is with oars for one person.
100%. 100%. So yeah, so Brian was in probably a worse predicament than I was. And then at that point, he pulled something in his wrist by trying to control the boat. So then Brian's, you know, I'm drenched, I'm freezing, I thought I was going to die. And
Derek's back.
Derek's back is messed up. Yeah, Brian's wrist, he's like, I might have tore something in my wrist. And I'm like, oh God, like, you're our strongest person right now. This isn't like, I'm just a little guy. I can't do this by myself.
This is really going sideways.
Yeah. So
the best part about all this is, like, you guys aren't even done hunting yet.
No. And I think my memory's a little fuzzy on that. I think we might have set up one more camp. I can't quite remember what we did. If we had 2 camps down the river, I think we did. And it was like that last day. And at that stage, you know, we saw a couple bulls. I passed on one, and now I'm really kicking myself, because I'm like, I don't know, should I have shot that bull? But then I was like, I don't think we would have got it in the raft and got it down the river.
Yeah, right. You might be dead at this. You might be dead at this point of the story, because if you had a moose worth of meat in your rafts, you really would have been in trouble.
And 3 caribou. Like, I don't know how we would have. It would have been unbelievably horrible. So we were like last day, and it was just, it's one of those stories that's almost like made up, I feel like, in my head. You know, I chose 4 points on it and was like, this is it. We saw one bull across the river in front of us. We tried to call it in. I think it was my day to shoot, and then it was Brian's was the last day, because we were alternating, and didn't see that bull, didn't call him in. We saw him cross the river, and that was it. And then we, you know, like I said, we camped and then kept going down river. And it was like the last moment. I think we stopped at that next point, didn't hear or see anything. And we were like, we can't shoot a bull before or after noon, like really 11, 10 o'clock. And like, that's it. The hunt's over. We need to get to takeout, because at this point, I forget how many miles we had to go. And then we had to go down the river, meet up with the main stem, and then drag the rafts 2 miles upstream to our takeout point.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how long that was going to take. I've never pulled a raft or boats full of meat up a shoreline, and we didn't know what to anticipate. And we were kind of worried, because there was a lot more water to begin with. And I was like, can we even pull the rafts up shore? We're going to have to hand line the things up shore, which would take, 10 times longer. So yeah, we kind of set that cutoff point where we needed to be to the takeout so that we could camp and then be picked up that next morning in a little, either they're going to land in a gravel bar, basically classic style. that you see in Alaska. So it was the last spot that we chose, and I'll never forget it. It was Derek was kind of in front. He was feeling a lot better at this point, or so we thought, better than what it was. And he popped up to this knob to call, and he immediately dropped down. And Brian and I were behind him, both had our rifles, and he's pointing, and Brian's right next to him. I'm next to him, and I see a cow, and I'm like, okay, there's a cow laying right there. And the next thing we know, I saw vivid memory of then seeing this bull turn his head and look at us. And he was enormous and still bedded. And then he stood up, and we I think he was 75 yards away at that point, 50 yards away.
Oh, man. And
he ran a little bit. Derek and I called quickly. He stopped. And Derek's like, I don't know if he's legal, for brow tines, And I yelled to Brian, just kill him. He's big enough. He's giant. And Brian shot him a couple times, and he tipped over, and it was, it was did this just really happen? Are we, did this all come together right at the last moment? And we went up to the bull, and he is an incredible moose that I don't think we'll ever beat in any lifetime again. So
I don't know how you could. It's such a giant moose. I mean, I don't know anything about moose, but I know it is such a giant moose.
Yep. I think he was a really cool bull because he had only 3 brow tines, but he was unbelievably heavy. He has some really cool character to him, and his palms are massive. And I think he was 68, a little over 68 inches.
He's gigantic. I mean,
I needed help to lift the head up. I couldn't lift the head on my own. It was so awkward.
Right. I mean, it's just hard to even imagine, antlers that are 68 inches wide. It's just such a giant animal.
Yeah, I have a picture of it stood end to end, and he's bigger than me.
Yeah. How tall are you, Joe?
It's 5'8", so
right. So it's yeah, exactly.
It was incredible. So so we made, I think that was the record breakdown time that we ever did, because we were we got to go now. We got to get out of here. And I think we broke that by the time we shot him and broke him down. I think it was 2 to 3 hours, and we were on the water. We scrambled through it, and his quarters were, I think when we got back, they were 170 pounds a piece, and you have to keep bone in that area, so you can't debone.
Right.
So it was a massive moose, old bull, bigger than normal, and we got 2 cripples and a little guy. So we're quickly loaded up into the boats and have 3 caribou and a moose, and we scrambled downriver, and we got to the takeout. It was brutal. We got there at dark, I remember, which dark there is I think it's 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
So set up camp, got all the meat taken care of, started cleaning everything up, and a little skiff of snow came down on us that night. And, that's the thing about up there is you're not communicating with people on a regular basis. And we had that river changes so much. We had the point and where we were supposed to go, and it wasn't even close to where we were where this gravel bar was. And I think looking back in that, knowing that uncertainty, now that we know that, it's they're just picking random spots on the river of I think a plane could land here.
Right.
There's no guarantees whatsoever. So we were on the biggest gravel bar that we thought. Skiff of snow came, and they made the excuse of, oh, we can't land there. There's too much snow. I don't think they quite trusted us. Yeah. Alaskans are highly skeptical of non-residents. Most of them are not.
Yeah, I mean, because you're risking your life.
That's normal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they decided, they're we can't get you there. So we'll come tomorrow was the after hours and hours of waiting and contemplating what we're going to do, and it was like, okay, we'll come get you tomorrow. But you might have to move downriver to a bigger pond. And it's like, wait, what? Like, we just got all the way up here. Like, we got to move now?
Right.
And so we moved down the next day. Now we're a day late, of coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And, we can get weather updates. And we got down to that lake, and it was supposed to be picked up that day. And we found out later that the pilot made it within, I think, like 15 miles of us. Like, we could hear the plane,
Mm-hmm.
and the fog bank was too thick. He couldn't punch through it.
Mm-hmm.
And he turned around. So now we're 2 days late.
Oh,
and we can see that. And then I forget if it was the pilot that messaged us or they did, but then they were getting very nervous because a cold front was coming in. And they were like, if we don't get you out of this lake within the next 2 days, you're going to have to paddle downriver 50 to 70 miles or something like that. And I was just like, I don't want to do that.
That doesn't sound good.
That sounds horrible. Like, so that at that point, we already unloaded the whole raft once with all the meat, and then reloaded it, went downriver a mile to this pond that they said was big enough to get off of. They chose this pond, and unloaded all the meat there, had it all prepped. And then they're telling us, well, maybe you're going to have to move downriver even further. And we're like, holy cow, this is the Alaskan experience, I guess. This is the scary part of it, just getting stuck up there, which happens. And I think it was day 3, because we were 3.5 days late, almost 4 days late, something like that. So whatever day that was, I think they're otters, right, Mike?
Mm-hmm.
They're the biggest float planes basically you can have. And
yep.
So we saw him, he comes in, he lands, and he's immediately like, who the hell picked this lake? And we're like, you guys did. He's like, I didn't choose this thing. He's like, I don't know if I can get off of this. And we're like, oh God, like, are you serious?
That's what you want to hear.
Yeah. And he was a very experienced pilot. Those planes are very cool. They're vintage 1950s, I think that plane was.
Yeah, a lot of them are old.
Brand new engine in it. Yeah, really cool thing to experience, being in a plane that looks like it's, an antique, but it has this brand new motor and electronics, some new electronics in it. So Derek went out first. That's what happened. So Derek wanted to go first, and he was going to go back and start cutting up meat, kind of get things prepped, get to the store, get as much done as he possibly could, because we're really late at this point,
Right.
Getting home, and we were driving home from Alaska. Brian's truck was there. And so we load up. I think we loaded up just like, I don't even know if it was half the moose or not, and some gear. And he's like, okay, I'm going to make a run at it. And we're holding on to the tail of the plane so that he could ramp up full throttle. And he's like, hold on to me as long as you possibly can, because I need to stay as far on this shore as I can so I can punch it and make it off this lake and break, surface tension.
Yeah.
And we did that, and he makes a run, and he stops, and he turns around, and we're like, shoot, well, that's not great. So then he comes back, and he's like, no, we got to unload some meat. I can't get off. So I think we took a quarter off. And those things suck to move. You're on a float plane. Brian and I are trying to do it with the pilot. They're 170 pounds. Brian's crippled. I'm small. It's not ideal. So then we unload a quarter, and he's like, all right, I think I got him now. So I think it was the second run. So he makes a run, and he's barely to the shore, and he power slides sideways and almost hits the shore. And we're like, oh no, that's not good. So Derek said it was a pretty wild experience, because, he's just at the last second, he just cuts it and just starts chattering across the lake sideways.
Mm-hmm.
So he comes back, and he's like, I don't know. He's like, I think I just wimped out on that one. I'm going to try it again. And I think that was, I can't remember if it was before or after we took the quarter off, but regardless, we're like, oh man, like, is he going to make it? Like, I don't know. And I think we took more meat off, but I can't quite remember. But anyway, he punches it, and the last second he breaks surface tension and he's gone. He was, he told us, I'll hopefully see you guys tomorrow. But if I don't see you tomorrow, you guys are in trouble because this thing's going to freeze.
Oh,
And we're
man.
like, okay. So fortunately, the weather was good enough. He comes back and he's like, all right, I got a friend who has a cabin over on this bigger lake that I can get all this meat off in one. But he's like, I got to shuttle you guys to that lake. It's like, I'll take one guy and half the meat and gear, and I'll leave the other half, here with the tent and meat. And he's like, you won't starve. You got plenty of caribou meat. He's like, I'll come get you eventually.
Right.
So I decided to stay and let Brian go. And he's like, I'll see you in 45 minutes or another day. And I'm just like, okay.
Or next spring.
Yeah. So I was like, well, we'll see. I had my little boat and I had the tent and I had the inReach and plenty of meat that I wouldn't starve. But it was a little nerve-wracking hour of, sitting there and waiting to see if he's going to come back for me. And he did. He came back, and I was very grateful. And he shuttled us to the lake where his friend had a cabin, and he was a really cool pilot. And we loaded everything back up into the plane, and he made it back. And it was late. It was like, I think it was like 8:00 at night by the time we rolled back. And Derek's there waiting for us, full zombie, didn't sleep at all, cut up moose meat all night long, just trying to get ready. And, he's like drinking coffee and acting like a tweaker. And, and then we were like, okay, we're going to cut up the rest of this meat all night and then jump in the truck and leave. And I think we got like a 2-hour power nap. And yeah, we loaded up and started driving home. And it was also part of the experience. I mean, we drove through those really, really large fires through BC, and it was something. I took the night shift, and I remember I was driving through smoke and rain at the same time in the dark, and it was not that much fun. But yeah, we made it home in 48 hours, so powered through and just never stopped. And again, part of the adventure that I'm glad we did, but it was a grueling, unbelievably grueling hunt with lots of highs and lows and everything in between. And yeah, I'll remember it forever. I mean, we got the full delays and the panic of not getting picked up by pilots and moving, and yeah, I feel like we got it all in one fell swoop for an Alaskan hunt.
It really sounds like it. It's just like, I mean, it just sounds so much like all the outdoor life stories that I read as a kid. Just an amazing series of events, an almost unbelievable hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, still to this day, the hardest hunt I've done, the one I appreciate the most by far.
Yeah. So the last thing that I wanted to cover for the episode, what are you doing right now, Joe? Yeah,
so right now I'm in Aurora, Colorado, staying in an apartment, which is not my home. If anybody's wondering, my wife did not kick me out. Not yet.
Not yet.
So she's actually with me here and being my caretaker for it looks like the next couple days. And so I it's almost a year ago. It'll be a year ago on the 15th of July. I guess for all intents and purposes, not to sound braggish or anything like that, but we I don't even want to say had it. And for the intents and purposes of this conversation, we very much had the life, I would call it. We settled into 2 incredible jobs where we wanted to live. I think that hearing the story earlier of, growing up in Pennsylvania, coming out, meeting you, it was my dream to come back to the greater Yellowstone area. We accomplished that and have two great kids. I very much had the life had the life of, what I wanted. I was in the best shape of my life. Last couple of years, I kind of took up another hobby of just, I used to play sports in high school, and I always liked competing, but I started trail running a lot and competing in some ultras and stuff like that, just kind of casually. And
yeah, casually doing ultra marathons.
Yeah, so I've done a couple, and last summer I was in the heels of, I tried to do a 52-mile race and ended up getting injured in the first 10 miles, slipping in mud, and I only completed 34 miles of it. But I had the ambition of, doing another race, and so I was ready to do a race in Helena. I think it was August 3rd. It was supposed to be up in Helena, 50K, 32-mile race, and just to kind of redeem myself. And so I kept running after I healed up and had this big project to do. And it was another rotenone treatment that I was leading. And so I was on the 15th of July, I left to go do, as well as anybody, do a bunch of pre-treatment work, do dye runs and all those details of, doing a project. And it's a lot of prep work. It's mostly prep work, as most people come to find out that lead these. So I started doing that into this canyon of this creek, where it was a 6-mile section that was extremely rough. I have to drop 800 feet to 1,000 feet into this canyon where this creek was, and it was really challenging to navigate. And yeah, I started having some, what I thought was food poisoning issues, started puking and having all those symptoms of food poisoning. And I ended up cutting that trip. I think I just powered through, and I did it in 3 days instead of 5. And I was like, I just got to get out of here and try to feel better.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. And then I had another week of pre-treatments, and I just I wasn't healing. I wasn't getting better. I was like, man, my technician poisoned me. He cooked something. And, just had that, I've had it happen before of food prep is really important in the backcountry. And
I thought you meant poisoned you on purpose.
I poisoned myself. No, I think he likes me still. So just me and him, back there and doing all this prep work, and week 2 went by and I still wasn't great. And then treatment week came, and I was like, man, this is just not going away. And I called Aaron up there, and I was like, I think I need to go to the doctor when I get out of here. I'm not feeling great, and I can't sleep now. And, I'm not eating. I eat and I just puke. And
this is this is so you, Joe, that this is going on, and where a normal person would have gone after day 3, you're now in week 3.
Yeah, I guess. Not the most intelligent, but I was determined to finish that project. It was this is a project that's been going on since 2008. My 2 prior predecessors started it, and I just wanted to put a bow on this thing so bad. And this was kind of it. And I was like, I'm finishing this project. I don't care. So I continued to hike in and out of the canyon, and I would I would throw up 3 or 4 times hiking out of the canyon because it was hot as hell too. And my boss showed up, and he was just like, "Are you okay?" I don't. And I finished it, and
turns out no, you were not okay.
I was not okay.
Right.
Yeah, I drove home. It was 8:00 at night. Classic rotenone treatment fashion. I went into the deactivation area and helped Jason pack everything out. And I was not feeling great. And, normally we celebrate those things with a couple beers after we're done these projects. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to drink. This is sad, but maybe I'm just getting old, but I don't feel like cracking a beer at my house after this, Jason, So yeah, we got back to my house, and it was 8:00 at night, and I went to the doctor the next morning, and just urgent care, and turned out that my liver enzymes were really high, which they kind of attributed to maybe food poisoning and whatnot. But long story short, they were like, we think you might have a clot in your liver. And so I was actually tearing the ceiling out and doing a house project when they called me. And I was halfway into it. And I remember talking to the doctor, and she's like, I think you need to get to Billings. And I was like now? I was like, I'm in the middle of a house project. I just got home. Like, I really don't feel like leaving my family again for another, day. Like, I just saw my kids, and I'm wearing a dust mask. She's like, I think you better go now. And I was like, really? Like, is this serious? She's like, it could be. And like, very vague,
Right.
So I was like, all right. So I got home and told Aaron and told my parents, and I was like, I don't know, I wouldn't stress over this yet. And I jumped in my truck by myself, drove to Billings, and got a CT scan, and they were like, you have a clot in your liver, and we don't know why. So that was that immediate kind of panic. And when I didn't quite take it I was nervous, but I didn't take it quite serious enough until the one doctor came in and said, I'm calling Seattle, Salt Lake, and Denver, and I'm giving them a heads up that you might be in liver failure. And at that moment, I was like, oh man, this is pretty serious. Like, this isn't a joke. So I think my parents then flew out, and yeah, long story short, I spent almost a week in the hospital in Billings, and they're trying to diagnose me and everything else. And so it was really unknown for a little bit, and I stuck with Billings for another couple weeks and didn't quite know what was going on. They thought it's called Budd-Chiari. So it's unfortunately a 1 in a million disease that can happen from basically bone marrow dysfunction in some sort of fashion. So I quickly sought out a different doctor and area and landed on UC Health, which is where I am right now, and started seeing them. And yeah, I was pretty sick most of the fall through Christmas, and I continued to be active. I was in rough shape for those first couple of weeks, but I was
like you say, pretty sick, like you could have died.
Yeah, technically. So like, I hunted with Brian, like, and I have those moments of like, I'm sure he remembers, of where I just like double over and be like, oh, I don't feel very good. And then it would go away and I would just keep hiking. So it was,
Joe.
I was determined to push through it. But they did tell me that the more I moved, the better I would be. So I don't think they quite understood what that meant. Like, I did tell him, I'm like, I'm going into the backcountry and I'm deer hunting. Like, he's like, yeah, I think you'll be all right. He's like, just, be careful. So I did a couple deer hunts. I ended up killing a deer by myself in November, which was a very similar fashion to that pheasant hunt. It was like a foot of snow on the ground, and I climbed 1,500 feet and was fortunate enough to find a buck and harvested it, which I was really proud of because I was not very functional leading up to that. So I was like, yeah, sweet. I killed a buck by myself, and I thought I was improving. The doctors thought I was improving. And by the time Christmas rolled around, I finally started feeling like normal again, to where I didn't feel like I was going to, throw up, and I could eat a little bit better. And saw a hematologist that New Year's Eve, and yeah, he gave me some fairly bad news that I was diagnosed with, it's called polycythemia vera. It's a myeloproliferative disease that basically I have a mutation in my bone marrow that causes the overproduction of red blood cells. It's called the JAK2 mutation. So at that point, he was, like, I think you need to start treatment. It's a cancer treatment. So that was the New Year's Eve celebration for that stuff. That was great.
Not exactly a great New Year's Eve.
Yeah, it's being told you have a form of cancer that's not curable, but can be controlled. So that prompted a bone marrow biopsy in Denver, and I went down. My parents flew in. Thank God my parents flew in for that. I told them no, and like I normally do, I'm like, I got it. I'm just going to drive down by myself and get this done. And you know, my parents and wife were like, "Are you stupid?" Like, the answer is yes, but I'm just, it's just my personality, I guess, in a lot of ways. So they
It
all
sure
came
is,
with me.
Joe.
They came with me, and I didn't drive. I flew. Oh no, I did drive. Yeah, I drove down, and my dad drove uh, back to Cody. So I had that done. At this stage too, I was on blood thinners, because it's a coagulation disorder. And I think the next day, I just got extremely ill. I remember just laying on the floor and throwing up violently that morning, and everyone was at school, and I called her and I was like, something's wrong. Like I got to get to the hospital. Like I can't stop throwing up, and I could barely move. I was extremely sick, and got to Cody, and yeah, continued to crash. Spent the night there, which I don't remember, and yeah, argued with doctors for a while of what my treatment needed to be, and being your own advocate in the medical system. I think that's one takeaway I got from this is, they wanted to take my gallbladder out, and I was like, no, you're not touching me. And then they wanted to send me to Billings, and I was like, I need to get to my doctors in Denver, like right now. And good or bad, he was kind of arguing with me about where to go. And then I took a turn for the worse, and he realized pretty quickly I was going to die on his watch, and he didn't want anything to do with that. So he immediately life flighted me to Denver with my wife. And yeah, by the time I got there, I was in pretty rough shape. They were contemplating. I remember, and it's fuzzy, but I remember having like 15 doctors standing around me at one point, and they're all like chatting about what needs to happen, what they think is going on. I mean, they weren't sure what exactly caused it. It was from coming off of blood thinners, and unfortunately, this liver disease is extremely aggressive. If it wants to be, it's very sporadic of how it can spiral. But I was warned it could spiral really fast, and it did. I think at that point the guy's he's an interventional radiologist. He's like one of the top ones in the country, and he was like, yeah, 50-50. If I do the surgery, there's a 50% chance you're going to die, but if there's a 50% chance you're going to die if I don't do it. And pardon my French, but I remember just looking at him and be like, well, fuck, just do the surgery. Like, what do I got to lose? So it was like 2 hour later, he came back in and said, my enzymes jumped up to like 5,000 at that point. They retested everything, started prepping me for surgery kind of thing. And he came in and was like, I can't do surgery. You won't make it. So then it was just kind of a waiting game of, push through, stay positive, hope you get better. And I did. I started improving after a couple days, but
what was the surgery that they wanted to do?
They wanted to put a stent in my liver.
Oh.
So what was happening is my hepatic veins were blocked.
Right.
So that's the outflow. So there was no flow going out of my liver to, process all of my, the toxins in your body and everything else. So it forces water into your abdomen, and just called ascites. And I was like 6 months pregnant at that point, because I just started building up fluid like crazy. I think I gained like 15, 20 pounds in like 48-hour period, I think. So, so then it was just, okay, let's wait and see. And at that point, my doctor came in and said, I'm sorry, like your only path forward is a liver transplant. So
that was in January.
That was January. I got admitted on the 15th. So I think I spent 15 or 16 days in the hospital there. And then I was like top of the list for liver transplant during that whole time period. never never got an offer, which in hindsight I think is good because I was in pretty rough shape. You know, going into surgery like that is not the most conducive for recovery. So it was definitely an emergency. Like we're taking the first liver that's available so that you make it kind of thing.
Yeah.
So then it turned into just she's like, you've improved enough. I think it's good for you to go home and see your family and spend some time there. And, we'll be in touch. We'll try to get you a liver as fast as possible. You're at the top of the list.
Mm-hmm.
And I remained at the top of the list or top 3 for a while. I came back at one point because I was not feeling great. And I spent, I don't know, I think with this most recent visit, I think I've stayed in the hospital for a little over 50 days. So it was kind of just back and forth. I got 2 liver offers during that time period where they call them dry runs. It's basically they called me, said, we have a liver for you, come to Denver. Aaron and I would fly to Denver. My parents usually would fly in. I think they flew in both of those, or the first event. And you get prepped for surgery, and then they're like, sorry, the liver isn't functioning well. Surgery's off. So you fly home. So that would nuke me, just mentally, physically.
Right.
So I did that twice, 3 times, I guess, technically, where they thought I was going to get an offer. I spent 2 weeks here.
Mm-hmm.
So we were back and forth a lot since January, not working, not exercising, not doing much. Till finally this May, I had another offer, and it was like once a month I was getting an offer basically, and this one stuck, and I had a great surgeon, and fortunately she used some more advanced technology that kept the liver on a machine and alive. That she actually gave me the time. She tested the liver before I flew down, which was, she knew I was not in good shape, so she's like, I don't want you to fly here for no reason. So she ran all the tests on that liver and approved it and said, we're a go. And so I had surgery, transplant on May 22nd.
Jeez.
So I've been here ever since. So
yeah, we're talking. It's just a couple days after the 4th of July now. That I'm not sure when we'll get this one to air, but you're 6 weeks or more post surgery now, right?
Yeah, I was 6 weeks on the 4th.
Yeah.
So that was a good milestone, and they anticipated that I would need full 3 months. That's kind of what they tell you, is you need to be close by 3 months. And most people are fortunate that they live in the area. Like they go home and just come back and forth for their, doctor's visits, where I don't have that ability to do that living in Cody. So
right.
we got an apartment down here and staying here, and, but fortunately I'm doing really well, and enzymes are normal, and I'm getting around enough. And so they're able to cut me loose a little over a month early, which is really good news. So I get to go home here in next week.
Yeah, you'll be headed home in just a couple of days, right?
Yeah, yep. So I'm very happy for that, to be able to go home and feel slightly normal again.
Man, I can only imagine. It's quite. I mean, it's quite the saga, Joe. It really is. I kind of like. I don't quite know what to say about it, really. Um, it it's just that amazing kind of lesson in, like, like you were saying, you're living the life, and that's how I feel about my life. Like, yeah, there's things about it that are hard sometimes, but geez, great job, live in a beautiful place, amazing wife, great kids. It's like, all in all, it's such a fortunate life that I'm leading, and this experience you've had is just one of those that just reminds you, like, how fast things can change, right?
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, it can
just
come crashing down pretty quick.
right, and just how grateful you have to be, just, I mean, just for something as simple as your health. Like, you're just not guaranteed anything. It's just
amazing that way. That, I mean, holy moly, I've never even thought about running an ultra marathon. You know, I talked about how good a big game hunter you are. I mean, just how much work you've been willing and able to put into it, how good a shape you've been in basically your whole adult life to be able to do all that stuff. The Alaska adventure, that obviously not for somebody that's not in amazing physical condition, and then just such a short time later to have something really out of the blue, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did you ever feel like you
Yeah.
had any indication of this before last summer?
No, and that's the interesting part of it. Like post surgery, I immediately came out and was like, holy cow, like I can't believe what I just put myself through and my family through. It's called encephalopathy. Like you're basically poisoning your brain. And like my brain was not functioning those last 6 months. And I just didn't realize how bad it was. So like leading up to it, I was like, they called it acute blood Chiari, whereas this fast onset of where I formed a clot, I went into liver failure, got a new liver, like acute. They're now thinking, when she opened me up, that she's very confident, based on my liver condition, which was end stage cirrhosis. Like it was bad. My liver was twice the size. It was hard as a rock. It was full of nodules. It looked like I've been drinking for, an alcoholic for 20 years kind of thing. And my whole left lobe was completely dead. It was just not even functioning anymore. And just couldn't even find my hepatic veins. She said they were all completely blocked, which is, she's like, I don't even know how you're walking around. Like I went back to work a little bit towards the end and I was just so bored at the house. So I started going back to work a little bit. So, you know, is stubborn is my path forward, through life, stubborn and stupid. So yeah, so she's pretty confident at this stage, and I'll get some, I have a whole bunch of pathology that's being done on the liver, and they'll form their opinion and of what it meant. But she's thinking this has been accumulating for a couple years, and I that's one thing, and maybe you have memories of that, Mike. But I hunt a lot with Brian and Derek and the two guys that we mentioned that I went on the moose hunt with, and even they were like, I came down to New Mexico for that oryx hunt, and they were making fun of me. I was like repeating myself. I wasn't remembering stuff. And those are kind of like the first signs of something's off. And that was in 2022. So almost 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And like, I thought I was just getting older. Like I noticed it. I was like, man, I just I don't focus as much anymore. And these last couple of years have been kind of a drag on, like being as productive as I used to be, and still good physical shape. But
Right.
I think that there was definitely this slow, degrading, chronic illness that was slowly building up in my body. And, I think I attribute, some of it of just being able to push through it is that I was in pretty good shape and I was active and I was really healthy. Maybe
Right.
it would have spiraled faster or not, but I was able to kind of like, push through those early stages and didn't even really notice it other than just, mental fatigue and fogginess that I thought I was just, getting older, even
Right.
though I came out of surgery and I felt more clear than I felt in years of my brain function. So,
Yeah.
on heavy drugs. So it's just one of those things that, I'm grateful that I was in really good shape and it's helping me recover faster. But yeah, it's hard to think about, will I have that life back again, of doing all those things. And I'll, I'm making it my mission to, and to not just for myself, but also just honor the donor, that person lost their life, and I get to live mine. Think about that a lot. So, living a clean, most productive life that I can, I think that's one thing that I can carry forward for the donor and their family, that they don't get to.
Right.
So, that's my mission at least. And I'll be back. I'm planning on running again another 50K next spring. So,
Joe, I have absolutely no doubt that you'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, I have to. It's just, that's one of those things of just self-identity that some people will call you an idiot for, pushing through. But I mean, everybody's different and wired differently. And, I would say that, I'm super grateful for my surgeons. I hunt a lot, obviously, and I coach wrestling, middle school wrestling, and my kids, biddy wrestling that they do, the club wrestling. And I was pretty worried like I wasn't going to have those luxuries anymore. And I was like, can I hunt this fall? And, she's hunted elk with her husband and stuff. And she's like, absolutely. And, you can coach and go back to life. Like, she's like, I didn't give you a liver to not live your life. So I appreciate the surgeons that I have and the team that I have that, they're very optimistic that I will be back to normal, just have to adjust a couple things, moving forward.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Joe, I mean, I don't know what to say other than we're glad you're still with us.
Thank you. Me too.
Yeah. I'm going to come to Cody and we're going to chase birds this fall.
We are. Yeah. Yeah. But I think that's the kind of the takeaways that I really took from this is that, don't take your health for granted. I always lived very much a carefree, as long as I'm healthy and active, I'll be fine till I'm in my 60s. Obviously that wasn't the case. And, I recommend everybody to just, when you're not feeling good that, don't take it for granted. And, boy, I can't thank my family and friends enough for helping me get through this, you guys included. So, having a nice, really robust network of friends and family, and I consider you guys family. So it's,
yeah, likewise.
It's just one of those things that, they really like for how independent and driven I am on my own, and my wife is too, that this is one of those things that you can't get through on your own. I'm confident of that. And maybe somebody stronger could, but
no,
it really helped me. So
I don't think there's anybody stronger, Joe. I don't think it's a matter of strength.
Yeah. So I'm very grateful for the people that are in our lives for sure.
No, it's amazing to be your friend. It's like we love you so much, and we're so glad that we're still talking to you, man.
Yeah, likewise. I appreciate it, Mike. It's been, yeah, I'm starting to call it an adventure. Aaron cringes when I say it, but it's my most recent adventure that's been probably the most taxing. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and you have progress through perseverance. So I'm hopeful that I'll come out better on the other end of this. So time will tell, though.
I'm sure that you will, Joe. All right. Well, boy, this has been a good one. I thank you so much for having the strength to talk about all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you talking, and I know we've talked about this a lot, so it's, the more I talk about it, better I feel about it all. So it's one of those things. Don't ignore the things that make you struggle, I think, in a roundabout way,
Well, and
deal with it head on.
Yeah. Teaching all of us a couple of important lessons here. So, yep. Well, thanks again, Joe. We'll
yeah, thanks, Mike.
We'll keep talking, and we'll see you in Cody in October.
Sounds good.
All
we'll
right.
talk to you soon.
Love you, man.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. I just really have to say again how much I commend Joe on his bravery and on his courage in telling us this story. Joe has been an amazing friend for a long, long time, and it's heartbreaking to see somebody that we care about so much go through something so challenging. But at the same time, it really is an inspiration to watch Joe how he's handled all this, how his family and friends have closed in around him and supported him. And if anybody that's heard the story is compelled, on our website, we'll post some ways that you could support Joe and his family as well. I thank you so much for listening to the podcast. As always, we would really love to hear from folks. www.outdoorrules.com. You can find all the content there. You can reach out to us through Gmail at outdoorrules@gmail.com. And of course, always watch for us on social media. To close this one out, if you're listening to it on the day that it drops, this is actually the first day that Robert, Poppy, GT, and I are fishing in Norway. So we are hoping to be creating lots of content in Norway, probably expecting 2, if not 3 episodes out of the whole adventure of getting there, our week at the lodge and all the fishing, and then the concluder on how it all wrapped up and how we got home. So watch for those episodes, hopefully starting next week. All right. Thanks again for listening, everybody.
Hunting and fishing, the great outdoors, mixing history, laughter, love, and folklore, creating memories with family and friends. These are the trophies that matter in the end. Outdoor Rules.